If you want to get faster, you have to get on the field. There's nothing you can do in the gym that will replicate the speeds and transferability over to sprinting that actually sprinting will do. What up? I'm Coach Nick, certified strength and conditioning coach. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be taking you through one of my speed training sessions. Now, typically with speed training sessions, I'll either focus a little bit more on acceleration and agility, as those qualities blend very well together, or I'll typically work on purely top speed. But today for you, I'm going to show you a little bit of everything so that you can pick and choose from this workout and implement it into yourself. Before we begin, I just want to say that I am not a naturally fast athlete. I am more of like the rhino versus the cheetah. So if that's someone like you, who you're a little bit bigger, a little bit more muscular bound, tend to struggle a little bit with the explosiveness aspect, then this is going to be for you. And I just got to tell you, it takes time. I've been consistently working on top speed acceleration and improving my running mechanics for the past 5 years. Okay, so I don't want to just blow smoke up your ass and say, hey, do this workout twice a week for 4 weeks and you're going to shave all this time off of your 40, or you're going to get so much faster. It really does take time, especially if you're having to unlearn certain mechanics or way of running that has not served you very well, and you're having to implement new styles of sprinting. It takes time for that to happen. And then to lay out the rest of the workout, since I'm doing all qualities, right? Top speed, acceleration, and agility today, we want to start off with what is going to be the most fatiguing and needs and requires the most amount of like a fresh central nervous system, a fresh body, and that's going to be your top speed training. So typically when I'm going through, whether it's top speed, acceleration, or agility, I want to start with maybe some priming exercises that I kind of lump into the dynamic warm-up, and then I want to do any technical work, and then I want to get into the meat and potatoes of whatever that quality is, and in this case it'll be top speed. Same thing for acceleration. Typically I'll start with some technical work, get the central nervous system where I want it to be, and then I'll go straight into the acceleration based work, and then same for agility.
And the first thing we're doing is just going through a 5 to 10 minute dynamic warm up to get the body prepared before we get into our actual sprints.
So now that I got through the initial dynamic warm up, now we're going to just take it up to the next level. This is going to be more of that priming type of exercise that I was talking about. And this is typically where now I'll start to implement either plyometrics or bounds. So I'm going to be doing about 2 to 3 plyometric drills and about 2 bound based drills. Okay, and then we're going to take it into our top speed technical work. Now, anytime I'm doing plyometric work, I like to always have like a marker, and it's just to make it a challenge and something for you to push for, especially if you're doing this by yourself and you're not competing against anyone else. You can at least have some of that intrinsic sort of competition with yourself. For our technical work for the top speed, we're going to be doing something called stride control wickets, meaning that these are a little bit shorter, and the whole goal of this is to have a quick back cycle. So we have front side mechanics, everything that happens in the front, and then we have backside mechanics. So we're trying to improve how quickly we can come from toe off, cycle the knee up and through, so you have to clear the hurdle. And that's what the hurdle's doing, is just kind of giving you like a mental cue to get your knees up and through very quickly. There's a lot of times where I see some mechanical breakdowns happen in top speed, which typically leads to being slower and pulling more hamstrings, is that they have a long swooping back cycle. Okay, so it comes back like this, and then they don't have enough time to bring their leg all the way up and through. So to gain ground, they reach, they break, and then they're having to pull harder with their hamstring versus having a quick back cycle up and through. Now you have more time to put the foot underneath the hip, attack the ground, and propel yourself forward and get a little more bounce out of each step. Okay, so just a little tip. These are really slow, not fast. Now for the main portion of top speed, I'm going to be doing downhill sprints. And with the hill grade, you only want it to be about a 10 to 15% grade. Anything greater than that, it's going to change your body's mechanics a little bit too much, and it's not going to have the same effect. But the 10 to 15% grade is going to provide an overspeed effect to your central nervous system, teaching your limbs how to fire and move quicker and enhance your overall speed when done for 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row and consistently. Okay. If you do not have an area to do downhill sprints, don't worry. Simply do some fly 10s, fly 20s, or fly 30s, and you'll still get really good results. So we're going to hit some downhill sprints. So for our technical work, we're going to be working on a 3 and 5 cone start. A lot of athletes suffer with their acceleration just simply due to poor mechanics and not really knowing how hard to push or where their foot should come in contact with the ground. And this is what this drill starts to clear up. So the goal of this drill is to have what's called a negative step at each and every cone. So a negative step, right? I drive out. A negative step would be my foot is hitting slightly behind my hip, so behind myself. So negative, positive, right? What a lot of athletes tend to do is they try to reach and gain ground with each step, and what happens is that is a braking force, and you have to wait for your body to travel over its center of mass before you can push and accelerate again. So the goal is to get your hip projection to this first cone so that you can negative step right underneath your hip or behind it. And typically this is going to be independent for each person, but you can work up to about a yard or 3 feet. Now you can see the fifth cone is out at about 7 yards, meaning that by our fifth step, we want to be at 7 yards. And this is really where we'll start to transition into the transition phase and then into top speed. But right now we're just working acceleration, okay? So when we're getting ready to go, right, we want to have a big push. Like imagine you're trying to do a single leg broad jump, but then you're interrupting and attacking back behind yourself. Now look, I'm not a track guy, so this ain't gonna be the prettiest, but it's the consistent work that you do that's gonna actually make you faster. So I just watched myself do this, and these cones are a little bit too far apart, so I'm not quite getting there. So what I'm gonna do is make it easier on myself, and once I get the correct positioning, then I can start to lengthen it out. Look, everyone starts somewhere. It doesn't matter. You can start wherever you need to and simply progress. Another key tip is don't try to focus on too much at once. Focus on one thing. All I'm trying to do right now is focus on a negative step. I'm not worrying about my torso angle or any of that, because if you try to focus on too much, it's too much in your head, and you're not really going to perfect either of them. So just try to focus on one thing at a time. Once you master that, then you can move on to another piece. Now, normally after I got done with some technical work here, a couple of sets, 2-3 reps each one, then I would get into my sled-based work or contrast sled work, which is where you do a sled sprint into a normal sprint to get some post-activation potentiation. but I don't have it with me, and I know a lot of people don't. So I'm going to share with you some other ways or other movements that you can do to still get really good quality work, okay? So I'm going to work off some push-up starts. I'm going to work off of some jump back starts for my acceleration, and then I'll show you simply some hill sprints that I'm going to do to work more of the power and leg development for those. That's going to take a substitute for the sled sprint. So just getting the push-up sprints. Now I leave the cones here when I do this as a reminder to get myself that far, but I'm not really focusing on it. It's just a subtle cue. For the jump back starts that you just saw, there's one thing that you really need to pay attention to, and it's your ankle stiffness, okay? A lot of times, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of different reasons why people get hurt, but this can be a contributing factor, and it's likely, is that when they go and they jump back, they don't keep a rigid ankle, they don't keep any stiffness. So what happens, this foot comes back, the heel drops all the way down with all that force you're trying to produce. The Achilles tend to get super long under load and then put you at increased risk for potentially straining or hurting your Achilles. So when you're doing the jump backs, you want stiff ankle off the back and front legs. So I'm almost thinking like I'm flexing in a dorsiflex position. I'm trying to minimize that heel drop. It's naturally going to happen and you want some of that, but you just don't want to see it all the way down. All right, now we're getting into our agility work, and one of the best drills that you can do to learn technique and proper cutting mechanics, and you can also make this really challenging, is just a simple triangle or 3-cone drill. Now, you're just getting started, you can make these a little bit smaller. I have these at 5 yards apart. You can put them at 3 yards apart. So I'll typically do a couple of reps at 50, 60%, and then I'll gradually build up to 100. But the main thing I'm trying to work on during this is proper outside foot cut mechanics. Okay, so I come out, I'm going to the cone, and I want to break down and plant my outside foot further ahead of this back foot so I can absorb, press, and turn direction really quickly. Okay, we do not want to be inside cutting, and if we have this back foot behind us, right, now I have to clear my own hips, and that's typically when you get that like bowing effect and you're not running straight lines. And if you know in agility and anywhere, straight lines are always faster than curved or bowed, especially when you're having to redirect really, really quickly, okay? Maybe not in baseball though. Another point with agility, if you go back and you watch those 2 reps, I want you to look at my head and see what happened, because it delayed my body turning, right? When you go to make a cut and you leave your head looking this way, your chest stays open, right? And now you're crossing over. You want to always make sure that when you make that cut, you whip your head around, and that's going to help you get open hips and run that straight line and be crisp with it. And if you're looking for more of a complete training program that covers all the movements in the gym, power, explosiveness, out on the field, conditioning, then make sure to check out the Peak Performance program below. If you like this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and then comment your questions down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.